Her hand moved faster than her mouth. The slap landing sharp and clean, echoing through the kitchen like a gunshot in a chapel. I didn't even flinch. Not out of pride. Just pure shock. The burn on my cheek was nothing compared to what followed. I want you out of this house. Now, you bastard, she hissed, chest rising and falling, eyes wild with something deeper than rage. I looked at her, the woman I had vowed to love, now a stranger wrapped in familiar skin. Okay, I said quietly, brushing past her as though she were a ghost. Outside, the night air bit cold and hollow, like the distance that had grown between us. A dog barked somewhere down the block. My keys jingled in my hand, sounding more like bells at a funeral than a homecoming. She wanted me gone because I wouldn't hand over my parents' home. Not to her, but to her sister, Leah. Freshly graduated, no job, no plan, no entitlement. That was my crime. I said no. I checked into a roadside motel that night. Room 208 smelled of mildew and someone else's cheap cologne. I didn't unpack. I just lay there, staring up at a stained ceiling while the heater wheezed like an old man gasping for breath. Claire didn't call. Neither did Leah. But someone did, mutual friends, asking vague questions, tiptoeing around the truth, trying not to choose sides. I said nothing. Let silence do the heavy lifting. The next morning, I drove past the house. Leah's little hatchback was already parked in the driveway, like she belonged there. The curtains were wide open. Claire stood laughing inside, a wine glass in hand. My chest clenched. My name was still on the deed, but in her eyes, I'd already been erased. I dug in old bank records, phone logs, messages I had missed or ignored, Claire's quiet withdrawals, her emotional absence, the whispers, the slow unraveling. I remembered the prenup she once waved off with a laugh. Just paper, babe. And something inside me settled. Not fury, not grief. Something colder, sharper, clearer. I drove to my parents' real house. Not the one Claire and I shared, but the place with creaky stairs and peeling wallpaper. It sat empty, yet full of memories. My father's old radio still perched in the study. My mother's apron hung on a hook in the pantry. Dust coated everything, but it felt honest. I sat at their old dining table and made the calls. Quiet ones. My lawyer, calm, precise. A realtor friend, trustworthy and discreet. And a local charity. Foster care housing for kids with nowhere else to go. That night, I drafted the trust. Ironclad. Final. The house would never be Claire's. Never Leah's. Only for those who truly needed it. I stared at the papers before signing. Not because I doubted the decision, but because for the first time in a long time, I felt grounded. I remembered who I was. A week later, Claire texted, "We'll be by Sunday to get the keys. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I didn't reply. I simply taped an envelope to the front door. They arrived like royalty. Claire in a tailored coat, Leah with sunglasses propped on her head like a crown. But there was no red carpet waiting. Just a single envelope, flapping in the breeze. Claire ripped it open, smirk already forming, until she read the words inside. This property is now held in trust under the James and Evelyn Carter Foundation. It will serve as transitional housing for foster youth aging out of system. This decision is binding. It is legal, and it cannot be undone. You cannot have it. You never could. Her hands trembled. "He's bluffing," she muttered. Leah leaned over her shoulder. He wouldn't, would he? Behind them, the porch groaned under the weight of old echoes, my mother's laughter, my father's steady steps. The front door stayed shut. Later, my lawyer called. They're stunned. Tried everything. It's done. I nodded. Want to say anything to them? No, I said. The letter said enough. Now I live alone. A modest apartment on the second floor, where I sip coffee and watch the city stir through a window streaked with rain. The divorce papers came yesterday. I signed them without a second thought. Each morning, I brew my coffee and start again. The quiet doesn't ache anymore. Sometimes I drive past the old house, not to look at them, but to watch the kids. There's laughter now, a garden blooming. Bicycles scattered across the lawn. The charity sends updates, drawings taped to walls, handprints in paint, names I'll never know calling that place home. Claire never reached out again. Not after the trust. Not after the letter. Maybe she realized what she lost. Maybe she never cared. Either way, it doesn't matter now. I didn't meet her rage with fury. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I simply walked away with the one thing she never expected: dignity. And now, as I sit here, coffee warm in my hands, I remember what my father once told me. Some battles aren't won with fists or fury, just with the strength to walk away and mean it.